Huge thank you to CIBC for making We Get It possible. Hello, everyone. My name is Karine. I'm the Program Director with Untitled Cancer Canada, and welcome to a new episode of We Get It. We come on live on our Facebook page, Young Adult Cancer Canada Facebook page, every Monday at 7 p.m. Eastern. Our episodes, all of them also live on our YouTube channel. And if you want to have the closed captioning with our episode, YouTube channel can provide you that automatically. And we are also working on transferring our episodes into a podcast so that you can listen to all the awesomeness driving your car, or maybe in the hospital, not quite feeling like watching a video. You could at least listen to what we're going to offer you. So this is all in the works. So welcome. Today I am quite pumped with my guest. I am with Meghan McInnis. That's how you pronounce your last name, right?
That's right.
Meghan is, I think, if I'm not mistaken, you're co-founder of the Queering Cancer website.
Yeah, that's right.
So not that long ago, we came looking and doing some search to serve better, really, our 2S LGBTQA plus community members. We were doing some research, and this beautiful site was in the creation. So I guess the first time we saw it, it was not quite there yet. So I'm really, really happy to have you with us today so we can learn more about queering cancer and learn a little bit about why was that created and why was that important. So thank you, Meghan, for being here with me today. Let's start. I guess we try and make a point to give a context just so everybody knows, like every single week, I'm in my home office enjoying the sun that is really working hard to come out. But the exciting thing today is I am able to wear my uniform. For those who don't know me, my uniform is a jean jacket. And this is what I have on today because I had a meeting with my colleagues outside of the home office, and that was amazing. So this is where I'm sitting, standing here. Meghan, let's tell us a little bit about you. Who are you?
Yes. Hi, everyone. I'm Meghan McInnis, and I am a PhD candidate at Queen's University studying clinical psychology. So a little bit about where I'm at right now. I am also in my home office. Yeah, it's a little cloudy out. I have a window right in front of me, but I also have lamps on either side of me to brighten things up a little bit. I am a Caucasian woman with a slightly overgrown pixie cut due to the lockdowns in Ontario right now, and rather oversized glasses. So that's a little bit about who I am. Hopefully gives you a bit of a picture.
Beautiful red glasses. I actually love them, which
Thank
I'm
you.
in the process of having to wear glasses for close. So this is inspiring to look at your glasses right now to me.
Oh, amazing. Make them an accessory, right? Like
Yes.
make a statement.
Make a statement. Yes. Thank you. So thank you for being here. So let's first start. So for those of you who don't know anything about it, we will make sure to share the website. But how about you telling us a little bit about Queering and Cancer website, how it came about, what people can find on there. Let us know a little bit about the story of how this got created.
Oh, excellent. Yeah, I'd love to. So even though in my PhD, I moved a little bit away from cancer research, my master's was focused on the experiences of individuals with prostate cancer, and particularly with a focus on gay and bisexual men with prostate cancer. So a bit of a long story, but in 2018, I was awarded a Hacking the Knowledge Gap grant from the Canadian Institutes of Health Research. So this grant was, it was pretty cool. This grant was to support knowledge translation. So really that just means putting research knowledge into practical use. And quite a few researchers across the country who were involved in LGBTQ2 plus health and wellness research were awarded one of these grants. So, I submitted a proposal to do with prostate cancer, and this grant allowed me to go to Vancouver to meet with all the other winners of the grant. For this 2-day design jam event. So really we got grouped together with people with similar research interests. And that's how I first met Evan Taylor and Amanda Bolderston, who are the other co-founders of Queering Cancer.
Nice.
Yeah.
So this is kind of like, when you met, but how did you come about the idea?
Yeah, so basically we had to spend the next 2 days. It was a really quick event, working on developing some sort of a knowledge translation idea. And originally we'd had this idea of doing a workshop, an in-person workshop for individuals, LGBTQ2 plus individuals with cancer. That was what we developed. That's what we presented at the end of the weekend. But then when we kind of left that design jam event and started thinking about developing our project in the real world, we thought, a website would definitely be more accessible to more people. So we've kind of shifted away from that workshop idea toward a website. And given that we launched in the middle of a pandemic, I think the need for accessible resources is even more obvious.
Right.
Yeah, so that was kind of good that we shifted that way. But like the idea for the workshop and like the spirit of what we were hoping to provide, being like information and community, that still stayed with us for the Queering Cancer website. So even though we changed the format completely, I think like our core ideas and what we were really hoping to make, they stayed the same.
Yes. And like everything, like when an idea is born like that, I just love how sometimes you couldn't have designed it better, but whatever the circumstances were, you met the right people and then had this kind of passion. And then I feel, and you can correct me if it's not the case, but I feel like this is so new and so wonderful and important. It's evolving. And with your kind of core mission in mind, I think this can really become something that is already really used, but that can really become even more. I read so I spent quite a bit of time on the web and then saw some stories and read about it. And I just think this is great. How about you tell us a little bit, what can people find if they go on the site?
Yeah, so I really love how you mentioned that you see this as something that's ever evolving, because that's how we see it too. We want it to always be relevant for the people who are visiting it. But yeah, Queering Cancer is a website with three main components. So we have the information section, which is a fully searchable database with resources and information that's really specific to LGBTQ2 plus individuals with cancer. There is some really great information out there, but it can be difficult to find. I was one of the people taking the lead on trying to find the resources for the database, and I had trouble finding things. So if you have cancer and you're looking for information, it'd be even harder, I'm sure, to find that information with all these other stressors in your life. So with our directory, we put it all in one place. So hopefully it'll be more accessible for people to find it when they need it. And then the community section, that's where we have our discussion forums for people to connect, ask questions, share their experiences with others. And as part of that evolving nature of our website, we've actually just created a new group by request of someone who wanted one for hereditary cancer. So for people who might have a hereditary risk of cancer that wanted to have a place to connect with others. So we're happy to create new groups as needed from people who request them. And then the last thing is the story section that you were just mentioning. So it contains stories written by LGBTQ2 plus individuals who have had cancer or who have cancer. And some of these are hosted directly on our website, but we've also been able to link to external websites just to share some of the stories that are already up there.
Yes, this is so great because so for us, how we came about finding your site was really, it started, I guess, a part of me, we've had discussions with some of our community members who were in the 2S LGBTQ plus community, and you voiced at times and sometimes not, and probably because they maybe didn't feel that comfortable or that safe to bring it forward because it was not really out there. And we as an organization didn't necessarily say, we want to hear your voice, we want to represent you better on our site. And so as this piece started to evolve and we got amazing community members who came forward and said, I want to do more, I want to do things, we on our end started as well to kind of say, okay, let's do it. That's where we find your site. And that's where we also on our end started to create programs. So we have now a chat that is bi-weekly, that is specifically for people in the 2S LGBTQA plus community. So we have that creation in mind. And then some people are starting, because when you can find yourself and see yourself in stories, and especially to your point, stories about cancer and your own intersectionalities in there, it's easier to say, well, maybe I'm going to share a little bit about me. Because when you can't see that at all, and you're absolutely right. So I did some search, and I continue to do some search, not just within the LGBTQ and cancer kind of area, but also even race and cancer in Canada,
Yeah.
people living with disability and cancer. And this
Mhm.
is not easy to find.
No.
It is not easy to find information, and it is not easy to find even resources.
No.
So yeah, I can see how this is ever evolving, but also had to be not easy to populate your site.
No, for sure. We're still working on it. We're always looking for the most recent updates. And I just want to comment on something you said. It was that biweekly chat that you're holding. I think that's so exciting. Because
Mm.
one thing that's definitely missing for this population dealing with cancer is support. There's not a lot of support groups that are specific to this population, which is too bad. So I think that weekly chat is or biweekly chat is a perfect opportunity for people to get support from people going through similar things.
I think so. And I think we have to start somewhere. And
Mhm.
maybe some of the people listening today are wondering, well, why? Or why is it different if you are gay or if you are transsexual and then you have cancer? Why is it necessary to have a space? Are you able to speak a little bit about that?
Oh, yes, absolutely. And I think this is a question that our team got a lot as we were launching the website. So we've come prepared to answer it for
Yeah.
sure. So, I mean, there's a lot of disparities faced by this population when it comes to cancer, even starting with risks. So, the research shows that for various reasons, queer people are at higher risk for certain cancers. So, one example is that in general, lesbian women are at a higher risk for breast cancer. The unfortunate thing is that queer and trans people might present later for treatment due to lack of screening. So screening messages are often aimed at straight cisgender people. And healthcare professionals might be unaware of the needs of queer and trans folks related to cancer screening. So one example might be when it comes to cervical screening. Some healthcare professionals might think that a lesbian woman who's not having sex with men might not need a cervical screen, or they might not be aware that a trans man could need cervical screening. So that's one example. And I'd like to highlight this really great campaign from the Canadian Cancer Society, Get Screened, which specifically targets LGBTQ2 individuals with a cool movie themed campaign about their screening risks. So I really like that. And then turning to treatment, cancer services are often highly gendered. So one example, breast and gynecological cancers are kind of termed as women's cancers. So for trans and non-binary folk, they might feel unwelcome in treatment settings, just trying to get help for their cancer. And then the other thing with queer patients, they might not disclose their sexual orientation to the healthcare providers. And for many reasons, they might not even feel safe doing so. Their healthcare providers might not ask them. And it's unfortunate because it might mean that they're not receiving the information that's relevant to their needs. So really all this to say that cancer doesn't discriminate, but the healthcare system often does.
Absolutely. Like I've done some reading, and I actually, for anyone interested in learning more, I got this through Coursera. I got this queering identities course. So it was not cancer specific, but I learned a whole lot reading about that. And I learned a whole lot about the challenges. And to your point, sometimes I think it is just lack of education and lack
Yeah.
of knowledge,
Mhm.
but also sometimes it is discrimination. And it is to really force people into boxes that are not making people feel safe. And we've heard and read stories of, to your point, people either, a lesbian saying, I was forced to have a pregnancy test asked in front of everyone, even though I haven't had sex with a man ever. And so to have these very uncomfortable and unsafe conversations in a system that is built for really white, male, female, cisgender. Like there are so many things that we cannot see or sometimes choose not to see that are out there. And I think a lot of our community members feel they don't know who to turn to or who to talk to about that. Who do you tell that story to? So I think what you are doing with the creation of your site, building this community, and for us on our end, feeling this sense of responsibility to do more and better, hopefully can allow for those conversations to take place and then not just stay within a closed space, but then to
Yeah.
expand so other people learn about it
Mhm.
and kind of open their eyes, of like, never thought of that.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And I think it's great that you just mentioned that training that you did, even though it's not cancer specific. I think training that just helps people be aware of diversity in gender, diversity in sexual orientations will hopefully make them more confident to have these conversations with their patients and just show them that they're open to asking them about their sexual orientation or their gender identity, which will hopefully just create a more welcoming, open treatment space for patients.
Yes. And I think some of what you were mentioning, I'm not sure that most people would think that being within the LGBTQ plus community could mean that screening is different, could mean that you get less or not quite the appropriate care. And I think especially in Canada, I'm not here to shit on our healthcare system. This is not what I'm doing. But
No.
ultimately, though, I think we need to, take our head out of our ass, if you allow me the expression, and see that it is not a perfect system. And yes, within this beautiful country of ours, there are still people who are not receiving the health care that they should and that they need. And sometimes it is related to a reason that should not be. And I think that's part of what you're also, are you doing any awareness um, initiatives as well within your site and your, I guess, purpose?
Definitely our social media has taken a bit of an awareness lens. So we're on Twitter and Instagram at Queering Cancer, and our social media manager, Kim, has been really wonderful at putting a lot of great facts out there about some of the disparities that exist and about the kinds of things that healthcare providers can do to just make their patients feel more welcome in the healthcare setting and specifically the cancer care setting.
Yes. It is, yeah, that's it. And I think ultimately, when I know that when you create an organization and a site and a space, you can't do everything. And you can't do everything all at once.
I wish.
I know, right? If time was unlimited, and but ultimately, what is beautiful is because of the space you've created, I think this could allow for some leaders out there to want to bring some of the movements forward, and to kind of maybe add to your mission to say, okay, this space exists, this information is out there, but here's what else, like what else can we do, and here are some of those things. And I think education is a big thing. So as I was browsing on your site, I did love the fact that I could actually click on things and learn for myself. Even though I don't have cancer, I want to be more comfortable and better equipped to receive people who have a different reality, so they can talk about it. Do you get a lot of people, like I know that, like I said, you've been quite busy. Do you get a lot of people connecting and asking, what are some of the requests you get from people at the moment?
Yeah, so we have actually, most surprisingly to us, been getting requests from healthcare providers to provide some training or provide some information to them, which is wonderful because we created this website primarily as a space for people with these lived experiences. But I think, much like you were saying, we hope that healthcare providers, caregivers, people like that who are going to interact with these people will access our site and learn something new. And in terms of training, so we don't always feel qualified necessarily to be able to offer this training, but there are some great options out there. Rainbow Health Ontario is the one I find myself recommending all the time, and they've moved to do some online modules during the pandemic, but they provide everything from just the kind of general training you were just talking about, to more specific things like mental health for LGBTQ2 individuals or gender affirming care for trans individuals. So that's a really great resource for healthcare providers looking for training. And it's one that we tend to direct people toward for those requests that we're not sure we have the time or expertise to address fully.
Right. This is neat. This is great. I'll make sure to tag that information along and check it out, because I think ultimately stories are a beautiful way to educate. But like I was saying earlier, for all kinds of reasons, there hasn't been as many people feeling comfortable to share their stories publicly. Some of our community members, like some of the stories you have on your site, have been quite open with being homosexual, trans, and talk about it more openly. But what we're working on with everyone is also to say, well, how is that different within your cancer experience? Because sometimes for all kinds, you want to fit in. So when we think of the population we work with, if you don't know a lot about young adults with cancer, isolation is something quite important. They feel quite isolated. So let's say you are within LGBTQ community and you are already feeling isolated at time, and then you get cancer, the chances of you knowing a bunch of people within the LGBTQ community who have cancer and find people to talk to. So if you find a community to connect with, you might try to just fit in to get the support you need and then refrain from expressing yourself fully. What do you think about that?
Oh, I completely agree. It's tricky because, like you said, you have these kind of multiple isolated groups, and then when you're in more than one of those groups, you're just extra isolated. So, yeah, I think that's likely. I've read. I mean, like I said, my background is mostly in prostate cancer, but I know, like gay and bisexual men would present to these general prostate cancer groups, and they wouldn't feel comfortable talking about gay sex, for example, because they didn't want to kind of alienate themselves from the other members of their group. So yeah, then they would find themselves being very quiet and not really speaking up. Or the ones who did speak up because they felt bold enough to do that were kind of given those weird looks in the group. So yeah, I think that's definitely possible. And I think that's why it is important to have these spaces, like you said, where people can share their experiences without fear of judgment.
Yes, and sometimes it takes someone leading the way to kind of give you the right almost to say, oh, I guess I can share that. But if you're listening to that and you're thinking, I don't understand why people wouldn't feel comfortable sharing their own sexuality, well, maybe you're lucky if you've never felt, that either unsafe or uncomfortable because of fear of how people were going to react and think. You're quite privileged and lucky because, as we know, a lot of the people in the 2A LGBTQ community, but also, as we know, in the BIPOC community and people living with disability, like we have been having so many conversations in the last few months where that is highlighted. So I think for all of us, it is not to ever put the burden of responsibility on those who have these extra layers of challenges, wanted or not, that they have to cope with on top of cancer.
Yeah,
Cancer is hard enough.
absolutely.
It's really something, yeah, for people to think about. So if I look at my little notes here, so let's say people wanted to contribute to queering cancer in some ways, share their stories, or is there a way that they can do that?
Yes, definitely. So our website has a contact form. Like, please fill it out. We're monitoring that email, and I believe our email address, which I don't remember off the top of my head, is listed on our website as well. So get in touch. Like, we're happy to, share your story. If you want to share it with us, we'd be absolutely honored and really privileged to be able to share that with our readers. And, if you have an idea for a group that you think is missing from what we have available, tell us. We'll make that group for you. And if you're aware of some awesome resources that we haven't found yet, we want to know about those too. So yeah, get to our website and contact us, or reach out to us on social media. Like, we're really happy to hear from you.
And I know that your site is still pretty young, but have you already had any, sometimes you get testimonials, like sometimes we get people messaging us to let us know if we made a difference in their lives, which really is a beautiful fuel to do the job. Have you had some of those already in the few months that you've been on?
Yeah, we've had a few both through email and through social media, people just saying, hey, like nothing existed like this when I was going through my cancer treatment. Like, thank you, that kind of thing, that's what we want. Like, I don't really care how many people find the website. I just care that the people who need it do find it. That's what matters most to me. So it's been really nice to hear that, because that was our goal. We just wanted the people who needed it to be able to access it. And even before we launched the website, we did have some reviewers, so both researchers and healthcare providers, as well, most importantly, people with lived experience. And the feedback there was really, really helpful, because it showed us we were on the right track and we were able to make a few changes to make it even better for those people. So from the start, having that patient involvement has been really helpful, and getting the feedback now that it's launched has been just so heartening and lovely to hear.
This is what it's all about. Do you have any kind of words of wisdom?
Yeah, I think my main words of wisdom, they kind of boil down to healthcare providers should just be careful not to make any assumptions about a patient's sexual orientation or gender identity. The research evidence is really clear. Patients who come out to their healthcare providers are more satisfied with the care they receive, and they have better psychological outcomes. So that's generally overall. But like I said, not all patients do come out. Some might not feel safe doing so for very good reasons. So really the healthcare system, I think, just needs to strive toward creating an environment where everyone feels welcome. So this means, like I said, avoiding assumptions. It means asking patients about their sexual orientation and gender identity, including their partners and other loved ones in their healthcare and decision-making process when that's desired, and also being able to provide relevant support and resources. So I think the Queering Cancer website might be one thing they can direct their patients toward for some more information. And the other thing, like I said, I think there is work that needs to be done in terms of degendering cancer services so that trans and non-binary folk feel welcome and comfortable in those spaces. And I think that community piece of finding support where you feel welcome and where you're able to talk about your experiences with people who have had similar experiences to you, I think that's the piece that we see missing over and over again in the research. So I'm happy if Queering Cancer is able to provide just even one small part of that. I think that Young Adult Cancer Canada is also providing part of that, which is just wonderful to see.
And would you say, coming from the patients, those coping with cancer, this is one of the bigger asks, is to find a sense of community?
It's something I've definitely seen reflected in the research, particularly when I was, looking at prostate cancer research. That's a big part of it. And I think the other part of it is what I was talking about in that healthcare setting of, not making assumptions. And including partners and loved ones in that healthcare process, because the support system for LGBTQ2 people might look different than the support system for straight cis people. So it might include ex-partners, it might include more friends than it does family members. So I think just having that awareness and not making it someone feel weird for having different support people than what you might be expecting in your lens. I think that's a big part of it too.
Yes, that's super important, because a part of me is like, we're not going to solve the world here today together, but I'm like, how do we work with how gendered our healthcare system is, and certain cancers even more, as you mentioned.
Yeah.
How do we work with that? And how I think some of the kind of avenues you're talking about today can help, but ultimately a part of me feels like, well, we're going to need to back all the way to education. So for our medical healthcare professionals, for them to actually have proper tools and education as they're learning to become whoever they're going to be, but within hospitals, like the visuals, the pamphlets, it is really difficult. And we've heard that with the BIPOC community, but people can really find themselves that easily in what is visual. And that is still, I feel like even starting there could be a way to not have it's not just about the sign on the bathroom door. That's
exactly. Yeah, no, it definitely is going to require a pretty major overhaul. And I think even, a lot of like breast and gynecological cancers, their treatment takes place in like a women's health center, for example. And how would a trans man feel having to walk into a place like that? I think intake forms can just be more inclusive of gender as well. And what's really interesting about research on medical students, they have really positive attitudes toward LGBTQ2+ individuals, but they don't feel that they have the knowledge or the skills or the confidence to work with them and give them the treatment they need. So I think that these trainees are like primed to learn more. They want to do better. They want to help. They just don't feel like they're getting the training that will give them that confidence they need to do better.
Yes, like it brought me, I had two questions at the same time, but I'll start with one and see if I remember the other one. But do you know, so you mentioned research. Do you know if we have any numbers in how many, so who are we talking about? Are we talking about there's 10% of cancer patients who would identify within the LGBTQ plus? Do we have any of those? I know research, my colleagues who are in research are saying we are now doing a much better job at asking the right questions to get that information. But what do you think about that? Where are we at?
Yeah, so I don't know if I have any numbers off the top of my head, but I do know, I'll echo what your colleagues and research are saying. Like for a long time, like research would just like exclude trans people, for example, because they wouldn't have enough trans people in their sample to do full analyses. So they're like, oops, we'll just leave them, which is hard. So it's hardest for us to know, for example, about their experiences. It's definitely getting better. There's some estimates about how many people in the population might fall under that LGBTQ2 plus umbrella. I believe it's around as high as 10%, possibly, maybe more. I think it really depends. So, and then just given that, cancer is such a common, unfortunately, illness, and the higher risk factors for some queer and trans folks. I mean, it's not a small number of people who'd have cancer and be in that community. So we can't afford to discount them at all. So yeah, like no specific numbers off the top of my head, but it's definitely something worth researching and worth providing that support and care.
Yes, we need to, and I know I love that I work with people who are so willing to say, no, now we're changing our questions for us in our application forms for events. It's like, let's just make sure that we ask the right questions in the right way, but also in research to say, we're not capturing those stories. We need to be much better at that.
Yeah.
So this is encouraging to think, because to your point, it is not insignificant numbers, most definitely not. And even if it were a small number, like, children with cancer, there's 1,500 about a year in Canada. There's 8,000 young adults. There's 8 times almost. Do we think that it's less important to provide the proper? Of course not. We would never even, that would never even cross our minds. So why would we look at smaller subpopulations within a group of people and not think that we need to offer better healthcare and support to them? To me, it's like, no, it doesn't work with numbers. It works with common sense and works with empathy and compassion and desire to do well.
Absolutely.
And one of the last thing I can touch on that I think is really important. So for anyone listening, I think that if you want to learn more and if you want to educate yourself, there are a lot of resources. I'll put a few, we'll make sure to include a few with this episode today, but there are some places you can look and learn and read. And I think one of the things, if I learned one thing, because you said medical students and probably a whole bunch of people studying, and I was one of them not that long ago, sometimes out of fear of saying something wrong or making a mistake, we avoid, or we go with a route that is like, actually, no, that is going to make the person feel even more isolated or discriminated against. So sometimes, even in doubt, either ask the questions if you can't go search for yourself, ask the questions, and if you make a mistake, apologize with sincerity. You don't have, like a lot of people say, you don't have to make a huge deal about making a mistake in something you said, using the wrong pronoun, asking a question about transsexual situations, and then cancer. And then some people, it's like, well, I'm a trans man, but I have ovarian cancer, or all of these situations. If you're unsure, you can ask questions with respect, and then educate, read, and get into your comfortable place. And then also, I think it is to learn to be uncomfortable sometimes. I am sometimes. And then I'm like, well, that just means I got to go back to the drawing board and read some more and educate myself some more.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. I think that's it. It's better to ask a question you feel awkward or uncomfortable about than make an assumption that takes you down a really bad path that ends up making care worse for someone. So, yeah.
Yes. So, ask questions. And I hope that our conversation today made you realize that there are different needs and specific needs within R2A LGBTQ plus community. Meghan, thank you so much for creating with your colleagues Queering Cancer. It is already, even though it's new, a really awesome resource. I can see the potential on how this can really become something that is quite uniting and important for the community and for organizations like ours, for health professionals, like you mentioned. So huge thank you for coming today on the episode and sharing about the website and giving us your input on this topic. Thank you.
Oh, well, thank you so much for having me. It's been great to chat today.
Yes. So for everyone watching, have a peek at queeringcancer.ca. We're going to put a bunch of resources out there. Thank you for being there. And as I say every single Monday, remember to just breathe, especially when we are in these conversations that may make you uncomfortable, may make you questioning things, may just breathe. Take a deep breath, relax into it, and it's going to bring you some clarity. I am promising you that. So thank you for joining us and looking forward to seeing you next week. Thanks, Meghan.
Thank you.
Bye.